Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Carnivorous Grandma Speaks Women of Wisdom series. Tonight, we are here with our friend, Denitra Davis. She's got a little technical difficulty going on over there, but that's all right. We're going to start with our scripture as always. Welcome to everybody who is new. If you have not been on this Women of Wisdom before, we're happy to have you here. And then for everybody that is my old timers, we want to welcome you as well. So our scripture for this series is Proverbs 14:1. And it says, the wise woman builds her house, but the foolish pulls it down with her hands. And I love this scripture. I always talk about this on my Women of Wisdom series because women have such a profound impact on the way of eating for our families, the way of eating for ourselves. And when we know better, we do better. So, this scripture really resonates with me for the Women of Wisdom series. So I want to welcome Denitra. Hey, Denitra.
Hi, Robin. Thank you for having me.
I'm so thankful that you accepted my invitation to come on and be on this show tonight. And so tonight is going to be all about you.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yay. We want to introduce you to the audience. And so if you want to just go ahead and introduce yourself, that would be really good.
Absolutely. So, my name is Denitra Davis. As she said, I am local to Tennessee. I am an educator. I am a metabolic health practitioner. I'm a mother of one son. My son is 30. Recently married, about 4 years. And I am excited to be here. I've had my share of health struggles that have led me here. And I'm super excited to just be a part of this. I'm glad to have met Robin and have some encouragement on my journey. Sometimes it feels like a lone ranger when you're starting to make these changes and do certain things in your life. It just kind of feels like, oh my God, like you're all by yourself. And so I'm elated to have someone to be connected to. So thanks for inviting me.
So welcome, Denitra. Just so happy that we have connected. And for those of you who may not know, Denitra is also a brand new co-host on my new show on Monday nights, which is called Hey Sister Girl. And we're so excited and thankful for Denitra to have joined us as a member of our panel. And so she's bringing her experience and her education. She just talked about the fact that she's an educator, and she brings the knowledge. And I love your style, Denitra, and I appreciate everything that you're bringing to the space. As you said, a lot of times in the space, you got to find your tribe. I guess it is. You really got to just find your tribe. And so I'm just so happy that you have joined us on Hey Sister Girl. So I wanted to start out just talking a little bit about you, about your history and background, and how did you end up? Because I think that you are on a carnivore diet. So what was it that led you to a carnivore diet as your way of eating?
Right. I'm going to dial back just a little bit. I do have a couple of slides that I can share that kind of helps me remember the things I'm supposed to say. So bear with me. I'm going to figure out this share screen. I keep pushing the wrong present. And here, and here, and here. And then I can go here. Can you see it? Are you able to see my screen? I can't hear you anymore, Robin. Oh, I see your head nodding. Okay, sorry. So yes, my background is my own illnesses, my own challenges with my health. I use this slide to just kind of break down who I was, and I use it as an I and I. I was ignorant and inflamed. nutrient deficiencies, pre-diabetic, insulin resistant. I was diagnosed with lupus, excessive weight, high inflammation, chronic fatigue. That was my life, my story for a very long time. And as I have learned some things, you asked about my journey changing. I ultimately, have grown in knowledge. I often share this when my birthday was back in November. This is a picture 9 years ago. I was in LA, in Beverly Hills to be exact. Got a chance to meet Justin Timberlake. And you know how Facebook does not let you forget your past. So I had these memories to come through, and the picture at the top was my 54th birthday. The other one was my 45th birthday. And so
Wow.
what a drastic change.
Mm-hmm.
And so I share this one in a space of just the exact same pictures, but what I'm evolving to. Not all the way there. I'm getting there. I'm still on my journey, but I'm thankful. One of the main things that I say often is that we have these ailments, these things happening to us, and no one says anything. And so my new motto is if I see something, I'm going to say something. So I just, wish that someone had spoken up, before I had to get a diagnosis that something was wrong. These pictures on the left are all indicative of insulin resistance. And so I speak a lot about insulin resistance.
Yes.
And so basically, my journey to becoming a metabolic health practitioner was my own nosy, is what my mom would say. I would kind of be a little bit more proper and say it was me being curious. So I've, taken a couple of courses, gotten some certificates to, just help myself. These certificates under Dr. Westman and Amy Berger back in 2021, 2020, just on my journey to say like something has to give, something has to change. And ultimately I learned about Maria Emmerich, and I became a keto coach under her and a carnivore coach. I tell anybody, if you're looking for great recipes, Maria Emmerich is your person for that.
Yes.
I also went as far as to do the CDC training for diabetes. And so I have that one. The two, the metabolic health practitioner and the nutrition network certified coach practitioner. And the practitioner term is there because this is literally what doctors are learning to do with their patients. And so as an educator, I was able to go through these same courses. So doctors that are now treating their patients with a low carb or therapeutic carbohydrate restriction way of eating, they've had this same training. And so I'm grateful to have sat among doctors to get this training.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm. So you're learning a little bit about my story. And so my husband and I, we have a health and wellness business, Nutritional Knowledge. We spell it KNEW because we believe if you knew better, could you, should you, would you do better? And so we basically started this, gave birth in 2021. We established the LLC. And these are just pictures of us as well when we first met, and how we have evolved together, how we have, supported each other on our journey. And so we basically are working with people to help them self-identify, self-advocate. And every opportunity we get, we're trying to build a community of like minds. So thus me reaching out to Robyn, finding somebody who's carnivore is rare. And so that's what I do. I find people, connect with them. And so that's my attempt to continue to build a community. So I'll pause, Robyn, to see if you have other questions.
I do have a couple of other questions. I wondered about, um, so I have a few things going through my mind. I kind of want to just take a little step back
Okay.
to before you started your health journey. What were the things that led you to get on a health journey in the first place? You know,
Sure. So if we go back to this slide,
Mm-hmm.
Here, these are my ailments. Those are the things that were plaguing me, literally. I was nutrient deficient. I had a diagnosis of being pre-diabetic. At the time, I have insulin resistant listed here, but at that time, I didn't know what insulin resistant was.
Yes.
I knew I was pre-diabetic, which made me feel like, I got time. I'm good. It's just pre right now
Right.
because pre means before, right? But what I've since learned is that pre is really a culminating activity. You've already done 10 years of damage at that time. And
Yes.
so I think the biggest scare for me was the lupus diagnosis. I had a loved one who had been diagnosed with lupus and ultimately succumbed to lupus.
Yeah.
And I learned that lupus was autoimmune. And so I went down a deep rabbit hole to try to figure out um, what to do differently. What was I doing that may have been the same so that I could change some outcomes. And so the lupus diagnosis was I think the biggest thing that really got me nervous about health, because all the other things I had gout, they have an EO for every pill, eczema, I was managing my eczema. I suffered with dandruff at the time. And so those are the things that really let me know I needed to do something. I needed to do something different. And for me, because I'm an educator, I believe, for me, knowledge is key. Like trying to figure some stuff out. As I said earlier, I was nosy. I was curious. I wanted to better understand what was happening inside my body.
Right. So I want to just talk a little bit about take a little deep dive into around insulin resistance. And you said like see something, say something. And I think that when we look around in public, when we're out and about, we can see the look of insulin resistance all around us.
Right.
Right. But we don't know what we're seeing, right? So I'd just like to have you talk a little bit more about insulin resistance, and then I want to kind of go into some of those ailments and things like that. But talk a
Sure.
little bit about, yeah, what is insulin resistance and what's the big deal about it? How do you see it?
Right. So I'm going to use this slide just to point out in my own self, because I'm not here to talk about someone else. But when I look at these pictures, comparatively, it speaks volumes. But if you go a little deeper back in the past, so when I look at this first picture here of me, well, let me try. It'll probably be better from this other slide. Bear with me one moment. I'm going to go
Okay, no problem.
back up just 1 second. So when I look at them from here, and I can see here, like literally, there's no neck in most of these pictures, right? There's this darkness around my neck. That is insulin resistance. The shades in my face, around my chin, around my mouth, this right here on the side, that is indicative of insulin resistance. The weight, whenever there's weight in the circumference area, in that center section, that is insulin resistance. And I'm still insulin resistant. I have improved my inflammation, but all of these things are inflammatory at best. And so, what essentially, if I can just be playing on the show, what essentially is happening is that food that did not digest properly, food that insulin could not move and turn into sugar, it ultimately stored on the body. Most people call it fat. I try to stay away from that term, and I say inflammation, because it's essentially like getting punched in the eye and the eye is going to swell, or any kind of bruising to the body after it takes a hit. That is essentially what inflammation is. The body
Mm,
is taking a hit and the swelling is happening. And so that's essentially how we get into this space of insulin resistance. So I'm going to skip through some slides so I can drive us to a deck I have in here that's directly related to insulin resistance.
okay.
And so are you still able to see my screen? Do I need to expand
Yes,
it any?
we can see it.
Okay. So for me, I had no idea that as a full-grown adult that insulin was a hormone in my body. Everything that I had ever heard about insulin was that insulin is what diabetics take. Insulin is what diabetics get. And so I never thought that insulin was a problem for me. And I noticed it when I ask other people, like, have you heard of insulin resistance before? Most of the time, what I hear is, I'm not no diabetic. I was like, I didn't ask you about diabetes. I asked you about insulin resistance, right? Because we've not been taught this terminology as kind of this precursor. Like diabetes is one manifestation of insulin resistance. And so if you take a look at this second screen that talks about insulin resistance and you see the yellow keys, they represent insulin. The red squares represent glucose. They represent sugar. This is sugar in the body. And when there was an overload of sugar in the body, then insulin has to work overtime. The reason why there's multiple keys. So it takes these multiple keys to get the glucose that's coming in to go where it should. Well, after a while, insulin just stops working. And so the thing that we're most familiar with is diabetes. We are most familiar with that. And so because we're most familiar with diabetes, when we've not been diagnosed with diabetes, then we take a chill pill, if you will. But that bottom screen speaks to some other ailments that are directly related to insulin. And that is PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome in most women, inflammatory liver, which is also referred to as fatty liver, atherosclerosis, that's heart issues, heartburn, you burping all the time, you have acid reflux, low LDL, low HDL, cirrhosis of the liver, constipation, hypertension, high blood pressure and hypertension, one and the same, cardiomyopathy, elevated blood sugar, all of these things, this area where it says increase of intra-abdominal fat, that is the area of our body that is surrounding our stomach. All of these things are indicative of insulin resistance. And metabolic, you may see it interchanged as metabolic syndrome. What causes it, what starts it to happen is an overconsumption of carbohydrates. And I'll dial back and talk about carbohydrates. Genetics is a small part of it. Really, what I say that the genetics are is that I'm doing the same thing that my parents did. We're eating the same way, so we got the same ailments. And then this sedentary lifestyle, movement is key. And then overweight, but you're overweight because you're insulin resistant, because your body is not metabolizing the foods that you eat. And so I'll just pause and see what questions you have there. You're on mute. I'm sorry, Robyn.
Sorry about that. You said a mouthful because you gave a long list, which is really a short list
It
of
is.
different maladies, issues. I mean, you even talked about dandruff. And I had not thought about the fact that since I started on carnivore, I really don't have to deal with very much dandruff, very little, if at all. I still have insulin resistance myself, but a long list of issues that are caused, or yeah, root cause is like metabolic syndrome, insulin resistance, and that is just really, really something.
So it's one of the things that I harp on a lot with people because it's a term. I was fortunate of last night. I was at a Christmas kind of holiday mixer for businesses, and everyone was passing out their business cards, and they were talking about what they do, from attorneys to real estate agents to photographers, were in the building. And so while I was sitting there, I just heard the spirit say, like, go to your car and see do you have some of the insulin resistant papers that you give during your classes. I'm like, okay, that's going to be weird, but okay. So I went to the car, I got the paper out, and I was going to staple my business card to it and say, hey, this is what I do. I talk to people about insulin resistance. Like, here are some tests that you should consider having done. And when I walked back in, literally the whole group was in, they had transferred from like all of the spaces and they were all in one room, and the guy was speaking to the whole group. And just as I walk in the door, he was asking, like, does anyone want to speak out loud about your business? And someone went before me. And so then I went and I had these papers in my hand. You would have thought it was planned, but it wasn't planned. But I literally had a conversation with them about insulin resistance and told them about knowing your numbers, the importance of knowing your numbers. It's not enough to go to the doctor and say, the doctor said all my numbers were good. What are those numbers? What do the numbers mean? Can you point them out to me? And I mean, heads were shaking. And I was just telling them, like, this itis that you have in your knees is not your age. This darkness is not your age. This is a direct result of the foods that you're eating. And so it behooves you to find out what foods those are, but also being a advocate for yourself. And so I have the document up and I can share it with your audience at a point. But yeah, it is a great document that really just kind of speaks to what is happening in the body with insulin resistance.
Yeah, I think all of us really need to learn about insulin resistance, and begin to understand about the things that are happening, because like you said, as we're aging, we expect certain things to happen because that's what's been happening to everybody. But for the last 100 years, we've been eating an improper diet.
That's correct.
So I want to just talk a little bit about, how did you like land on carnivore diet? Because that's pretty restrictive. And some people are like, I could never do a carnivore diet because I have to have vegetables or I have to have fruits or, things like that. So can you talk a little bit about how did you land on a carnivore diet?
Absolutely. So, of course, when I said before, I went down a rabbit hole. And so initially, I discovered keto as an option for me. And I was doing low carb, I was seeing some success with that. And I ultimately was getting better, but not, I was still not at my best. I was still having pain that I didn't want to endure. And so I got a little stricter. I started learning about dairy. Under keto, though, I learned about like not eating plants. I mean, the pictures that I shared earlier, most of those pictures, I was attempting to be a vegan and vegetarian, right? I failed to mention that before. So, of course, we live in a world where there's, these documentaries called What the Health that sent us all to now want to be a vegan and a vegetarian. So I went down that rabbit hole too. But now I don't say what the health, I say what the hell, right? And I know this is a wisdom show, but I'm just saying, like, it is where it was sending me. Like, my body was decaying. I was dying slowly. And all the signs of it were what was happening to my skin. I mean, this is what happens in death. And so I tried like doing nuts as a part of the keto low carb. But I still was having pain. I still wasn't getting better. And so as I was going through some of the courses that I took, the research was just pointing me to all the problems with plants and that plants had problems. And so I started doing more research around, the anti-nutrients that are in plants, that seeds don't want to be eaten, and that these things are not bioavailable. And you're thinking you're getting certain vegetables and certain vitamins from them, but ultimately your body is not able to break them down. Your body is not able to use it. I remember, and I say it often now, learning that you would need to eat like a truckload of spinach to get the same amount of vitamin A out of one steak. And so then bioavailable became very important to me so that I could know that I was maximizing what I was sitting down to eat.
Right.
And so for me, it became these little small eliminations. And it wasn't easy for me, Robyn. I can remember because I entertain a lot for work. I take customers out or I'm at meetings for work. And so I remember still going to the steak restaurants, ordering a baked potato, ordering a salad, just so people wouldn't ask me questions. And I
Right.
would nibble on them. But because my body is cleaned out, I literally would be in pain that night. And so it became clearer to me that my body literally is allergic to plant eating. And so I don't consume plants because they don't agree with my body. The potatoes, the corns, and I mean, these are things that I loved.
Me
Now,
too.
you may catch me getting a bite of some collard greens if my aunt sends them, right? But for the most part, I do no plants. I do no fruits. I do no vegetables. And I'm
Right.
at my optimal. I mean, I didn't have a neck then. I can got a neck now, right? And I'm still on my journey, but I could just see my skin changing, my skin lightening up. I mean, the illnesses that I've had and the things that I've been diagnosed with, like none of those things are a problem. So even when you hear me say, like, I'm still insulin resistant, I believe, and I still have inflammation to lose. What I will say is that my tests and labs are better.
Hmm.
The labs that I had that identified me as being diagnosed with lupus, that test, and a doctor told me, like she said, it will never ever be uh, negative. It will always be positive. Well, it's
Mm,
negative now.
that's
And
amazing.
so I know that it is a direct correlation to the way that I eat. Um,
Yes.
and I call myself carnivore-ish because I make an ice cream that is primarily animal based. And it's not something that I do every day. And I think this is one of the things that I teach when I'm working with clients too, is about finding your formula, learning what
Yes.
works for you. There is not a one size fit all. Now, I do believe that plants can be harmful to anyone just because of their components. And
Yes.
what I've figured out is that all plants, anything that's plant based, is going to metabolize in your body as sugar. And so, if the goal is to keep insulin down, if the goal is to keep sugar down, then you have to monitor the amount of things that you're taking in that are plant based. I mean, even if you can remember, you know, sugar is a plant.
Yes.
It's from the
Exactly.
ground. And so the
Yep.
interesting thing in my research too, I learned about Philip Morris, and people can do their research, where they were in the tobacco business. And when
Yes.
tobacco
Mhm.
had to be censored and warnings, they got out of the tobacco business and got in the sugar business. So the same way they market and turned tobacco into chemicals that destroy the body, they do the same thing with sugar. And so that ultimately is how we have ultra processed foods. When I think about even the little candy cigarettes we had as children that we
Yes.
were able to walk around with, I mean, it was straight
Mhm.
sugar. So that was their transition. That was starting the transition.
Yes. And, I recently interviewed Dr. Ovadia. And basically, what you said there about, people who have insulin resistance, metabolic syndrome, he said that they literally should not be eating plants because they metabolize as sugar, and that causes this insulin effect, your body chasing, trying to put more insulin out to chase all that sugar that's being metabolized. So um that's really something about the insulin resistance and the plants, right? Because we have been taught that you must have daily doses of plant material in order to live. You must have fiber, you need to have some fruit in your diet in order to be able to survive. But there's literally no required level of those types of foods that are mandatory for a human diet.
Yeah, the body does not need carbohydrates at all. It's just simple. it's going to be sugar. And so one of the things that I do with clients is I have them to do a 2 to 5 day journal about what they've been eating before they meet with me, because I want them
Mhm.
to be as normal as possible. So I have them to do it after the fact. So
Right.
what essentially we learn when we're going through that is that they've been eating a diet of sugar. So if you wake up in the morning and you have, toast, you have orange juice, you have oatmeal, I mean, all of that sugar. And
Right.
they're excited to tell me, well, I just ate a little bacon and a little eggs. No, you needed more bacon and eggs.
Right.
The thing is, meat doesn't metabolize as sugar.
This
Meat
is
is
so fascinating because, we talk about the macronutrients, right? So what you're talking about right now is macros, carbohydrates, protein, fat, the three macronutrients. Two of those are mandatory and one is not.
right.
So we do
Exactly.
not have to have carbohydrates in our diet. In
And I just want
fact,
to put a visual for your
yeah,
audience so they
feel
can.
free. Yes. Let me put it
So
up.
this is it, right? So there is protein, fat, and carbs. So protein, if you look across the bottom of my screen, it's two of them are essential and the other one is non-essential. Essential means that you cannot live without it. You
Yes.
must have some of it. And non-essential means that you could live the rest of your life. As a matter of fact, you live it better without it.
Right. Yep. Absolutely. We have a question from our audience here. Hi, country girl. Welcome. The question is, so is dairy bad for insulin resistance?
That's an excellent question.
Very good
And I
question.
will start that answer by saying that dairy is animal based. So your heavy creams, your milks, they all are your cream cheeses are all animal based and are considered carnivore. I would say to self-identify with yourself, right? You want to identify what your goals are. What are you trying to accomplish? So for me, I am insulin resistance. I will have dairy, but when I am tracking to reach some goals, I know that having dairy slows me down. So, for example, I make a dish with cream cheese and ground beef.
Mm.
Right. So, but I know if I consume that a lot, the cream cheese is going to slow down my process of releasing weight. And
Right.
so I go back to just eating the ground beef and perhaps some butter. And so again, I make the truffles. Truffles are made with cream cheese and eggs. That's not something I'm going to eat every day all the time because there's going to be a slowdown in the process. So the short answer is dairy is not as highly impactful as some other things that you could be eating. However, checking in with yourself to determine what your goals are and then paying attention to your body. When I'm working with women and men, I say to them, this season of your life will be the most intimate time that you'll have with your own body. It's a thing that we really haven't done is really get intimate with our body. You will learn it. You will learn your smells, you will learn your sounds, you will learn your hunger, your not hunger, your I ain't hungry, but I want some anyway, and I'm gonna have it. Like you will learn all of these things as you turn a corner and really pay attention to what's happening in your body. So when you start to eliminate things and allow some things back in, your body is going to speak to you.
Yes, indeed.
It will start to talk to you. So, country girl, it's not just a flat answer to say dairy is bad or dairy is good. Dairy, you have to figure out your formula and where dairy works for you and doesn't work for you
Yeah.
and make your choices that way. And again, base it on your goals, base it on your whys. Dairy has a place and it has a place in carnivore. The key to that is figuring out where it works for you.
Exactly. I do want to chime in on that because I have hand eczema. It's called dyshydrotic eczema. And I have eczema. I've had it all my life. And when I eat a lot of dairy, I even found it out. I was doing a stick of butter a day challenge over last few months, that if I eat too much butter that doesn't have those milk fat solids cooked off, that it causes my eczema to flare up. So Dr. Tony is here. Hey, Dr.
Oh,
Tony. I couldn't let that pass by. I know that you
I
guys
know. Dr.
we
Hampton
love
in the
you. We love
house.
you.
What's going on, guy? Thank you for
Yes,
stopping by.
indeed.
Hi to
Thanks,
the
Dr.
business.
Tony. All right. Yeah. So, it causes me to flare up in eczema. And so like Denitra was saying, it's going to depend on, how your body can handle it. Cuz definitely I can handle a little. Heavy cream is something like heavy cream and coffee. I can't drink it. I just cannot do it that way cuz it's going to cause my eczema to flare up.
And
So,
I'm glad you mentioned that too, because one of the things that I teach when I'm working with folks is that ingredients matter as well. So this is why, Robyn, you don't hear me saying keto, low carb a lot, because they already have connotations, right? People,
yeah.
oh no, I don't do that keto thing, right? Well,
Mhm.
I know the true meaning of keto is good. It is perfect for us. But of course, marketing, big food has taken advantage of that. So I'm really careful with saying keto, low carb when I'm working with people, especially when I'm initially working with them. After a while, they kind of figure out like this is what you're talking about. But I'm also, as you just said, I'm also a clean keto carnivore person as well, and I teach clean. So today I had the
Mhm.
pleasure of working with some ladies, and we did an ice cream making class, and I was sharing with them the differences in the hang on one second, Robyn, I'm sorry.
That's okay. No problem. Oh, she must have to take a call or something.
Yeah, I need to get my cord for my computer before it cuts
Oh,
off.
yeah, no problem. So, you
Yeah.
guys, I just wanna say this, if you have questions, for Denitra, you can put those questions in the chat with a Q or a QQQ, and, we will be happy to take those questions.
And so it's really key that we pay attention to ingredients and not just take words as they are. For example, when we talk about cheese, and when you talk about shredded cheese, while shredded cheese is low carb and it fits on a keto diet, you have to ask yourself, what is it going to do in your body? And so with that, shredded cheese has cellulose in it. It has
Right.
anti-caking agents in it, which cellulose is sawdust. I was with Dr. Berry recently, and Dr. Berry told the audience, this is sawdust. It literally is what you put, it's wood chips. But you could also get that same block of cheese and the same flavor, and you don't have that issue. You just have to shred it for yourself.
Exactly.
And so then you have like your heavy creams, your coconut milks. And so there are coconut milks with garagum in it. There are coconut milks with carrageenan in it, where even when I'm making ice cream, I'm going to make it with a heavy cream that's clean. Do I have to go find it? Yes, I have to go and find it. I have to order it on Amazon, but it means that much to me because I know what these other things are going to do in my body.
Okay. So, I wanna just ask you about, um so, I mean, you're obviously very clearly an educator, and we appreciate that so much. But how has that facilitated you to be able to teach in this space? And I hear it reminds me of the scripture. Literally, this just popped in my head about the scripture where the scribes and Pharisees said to the Jesus that like, you talk like one who has authority. That's how you sound to me, is that you know your stuff. And so, how having that educational background has played into your your desire to want to do this, your methodology for teaching this, and etc. So just
So
curious
if
about
you
that.
notice on the screen, my little name I'm trying to grow is ACE. Once I looked at the three words that I contribute to me as an advocator, a coach, and an educator, I am always an educator. I've not been in the classroom for about 17 years. However, I've worked in the educational space continuously, but I'm a teacher. And I think even with the name of our business, nutritional knowledge, is that to me, that's where the gaps live. And so if I can bridge the gap for people, then that is my intent. And so my background as an educator, my husband was just telling me today with the ice cream making, he was like, "Oh yeah, and you were an elementary teacher because you like the frills, like all the bowls had to be red and all the spatulas had to be one color." And so I think what it brings to this space is a practical way to teach it. I have an analogy almost for everything to kind of break it down and make it simple, because these are medical type terms, right? When we start talking about health and wellness, when we start talking about insulin resistance, this is, a diagnosis that some doctors don't want to diagnose it. They think it's not a thing. But for me, it gives me this opportunity to continue to teach, which is what I love. But also, I think it helps me to break things down, make them easier. I do a thing called I3. It's an informed ingredient inspector. And so rather than just telling people, read the back, you need to read your labels, I kind of put a twist on that and have them become something. You are an informed ingredient inspector. So anyone who has ever worked with me, they're like, my grocery time has gotten much longer because
Yeah.
I am reading everything that I have in the store. And what I say about that is, on the back, it calls it nutrition facts. And so for me, if it has to say facts on the back, there's a lie somewhere that needs to be uncovered. I'm just saying. So with that, my folks know, read the back. They'll send me a message and say, "Can I have this?" I said, "Did you read the back?"
You also, you literally have to read the labels on meat as well.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
It's kind of crazy. Like, I remember the first time I picked up some beef steak, and there was additional ingredients, like some salt solution added. I don't want salt solution added to my
I
beef.
mean,
I
the
just want
packaged
plain beef.
meats, like I love like a brisket. I was in Costco and it was a Mission brisket. And I love Mission when I'm traveling. There's not one here in where I live. There's one in Nashville. But what they have to package has dextrose in it. And so for your audience, anything that ends in OSE is a sugar, glucose, sucralose, all of those things are sugar. And I have a document that will show you that there are 257 names of sugar. That's the small list. So why do we have all these different names? And so you have to be attentive to the meat. Again, this is the part where you are really loving yourself, not the nails you buy, not the eyelashes you buy, right? This is where you really love from the inside out yourself. You care enough to be informed.
Absolutely. We have another question. I'm going to go ahead and pop it up. Tara's here. Hey, Tara.
Hey,
Can you go over the tests that should be asked of a doctor? I'm trying to cover where I stand and if I'm missing too much of a mineral or vitamin.
absolutely, Tara. So, for this, Robyn, I'm going to display the insulin resistant document as soon as I can go here. And then Robyn will make this available for anyone who's interested in it. So
Yes.
I'm just going to try to help us run through it really quickly. And so again, this is about insulin resistance. It gives you a ton of information. If you look right here, I'm gonna try to expand my screen. This little skeletal guy over here on the right-hand side, where it shows you the things that are impacted. We talked about this a little earlier: heart disease, obesity, fatty liver, PCOS, erectile dysfunction. All of those things are manifestations of insulin resistance. But if you keep going, it tells you what the contributors are: sedentary lifestyle, chronic stress. But if you go a little further with me, is where I want to get to. Um, and the question is, how do I know if you have insulin resistance? And I don't say have it, I say if I am insulin resistant. And one of the things, and I talked about this earlier about my own self, is that, the darkening of skin folds, skin tags. So sometimes when you see people that have the little black things around them, we tend to call them moles, or we think they are coming because of age, but they really are related to how insulin is, because you didn't have them your whole life, right? There's something that have developed that is insulin fighting to get out, and that's how it shows up. But Tara, here are some things to consider: what your waist circumference is. This in the green, we say it's excellent. And the yellow is okay. And then when we get to the red, we call these bad numbers. So then blood pressure is one of them, as your blood pressure. So we've been taught that salt and pork is what make you have high blood pressure. Now you're learning today that no, it is how insulin is fluctuating in your body. But also of fasting blood sugar. And I want to make a distinction between fasting blood sugar and fasting insulin. So we're going to deal with the blood sugar. The fasting blood sugar is what happens when you prick your finger and you look at it through a glucose monitor. Our excellent fasting blood sugar should be under 100. Anything over 100 is looking pretty bad. You should be checking in, and mine runs around 90-ish. I may get 105, but primarily my fasting blood sugar does well. And when it says on here, this is with no meds. And what that means is, for a person who has been prescribed blood pressure medicine, for a person who has been prescribed meds for insulin resistance or blood sugar, these are without their meds, because those meds have a tendency to regulate that. So we're talking about without meds. And then when you look at the A1C, the A1C is an average of 3 months of how blood sugar is working in your body. So anything less than a 5 is excellent. Anything less than a 5 is excellent. Okay is 5.6. We start diagnosing people with prediabetes at about 5.6 or 5.7. That's where we start to see that. And then bad is anything above a 5.7, 5.8, 5.9. Those are starting to get into a doctor would say that you are diabetic at that point. Here's one that may not be familiar to your audience that I really want to scream it loud for the people in the back, the front, and on the side to ask your doctor for. So when we talk about going to the doctor and we say things like, all my numbers are good, these are the numbers. And so the fasting insulin should be less than 6. If it is greater than 6, you got some trouble. So let me break that down a little bit more. This is where my teacher hat comes on.
Right.
So the A1C is what most people are familiar with. Well, I shouldn't say that. A lot of people are familiar with A1C. And so that we've gotten comfortable enough, we've learned enough to be comfortable with, oh, my doctor said I got a touch of sugar. Oh, my doctor said I'm pre-diabetic, I need to watch it. Right now, he's just going to let me monitor with diet and exercise. Really understanding that A1C that is in that 5.6, 5.7, and I said this earlier, that is actually, we call it pre-diabetes, but that is insulin resistance at its finest when you get into the 5.6, 5.7, 5.8 range. And what does that mean? We call it pre-diabetes. We call it before diabetes. But actually, it's a culminating number that is indicative of about 10 years of damage. You've been doing something for 10 years, and it's finally showing up on a radar screen. And right now the radar screen says you're pre-diabetic, but it took you 10 years to get there. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is the things that you've been eating. So I'll talk about me. I was a cake eater. When I learned that you could have a cake without a birthday, I was messed up for my whole life.
Right.
Just for real talk. Like,
Same.
I would buy anyone a birthday cake. It could be your birthday and I never met you before. I would stop, pause in the middle of what I was doing and run to Sam's and buy you a sheet cake because I wanted the four corners off your cake because that's where the most icing was. Right.
Mhm.
So then I was a ice cream eater. So this damage that I was doing where it wasn't an immediate gun to my head, the damage was being done. And so the A1C, while we say we can move it over a 90-day period, some things when you keep doing them, they just become a part of you and then they start to show up. It's just like stumping your toe. You don't see the bruising immediately, but by morning, you got a blue toe, right? It's the same thing we see when people are having amputations. And we like, man, I didn't even know you was diabetic. I didn't even know that you were having this problem, right? That's because that damage doesn't show. It's nothing knocking on your door and saying, hey, Robyn, in about 3 months, I might have to take that toe, ma'am. There
Mhm.
is nothing saying that. The fasting insulin is the fastest way to learn if you're insulin resistant. Let me tell you why. Because remember when we talked earlier about insulin resistance, and that insulin has to go get more insulin in order to keep the blood sugar down, to regulate the blood sugar. So a lot of times when you go to the doctor and the doctor's like, oh yeah, you're good. All your numbers are good. You're in the pre-diabetic range, you're borderline. If they would take a fasting insulin, they would see that the reason why you're borderline is that insulin is so high that it's working for you. So
Mhm.
it is covering what's really going on. So most doctors don't do a fasting insulin as a regular part of the exam. So for you, Tara, that's what you want to ask your doctor. All of these on here, but you don't want to walk out without asking the doctor for a fasting insulin. Okay.
Thank
And then
you.
you have your triglycerides and your
Mhm.
HDL. Those are a part of your lipid panel. So when you go to the doctor and the doctor is talking to you about cholesterol, those two things are a part of your lipid panel. What I want you to notice that's not here is
Yeah.
LDL. So doctors go running to, they see LDL high and they go running for that. And I'm saying that the triglycerides and the HDL, not I'm saying, the research shows that triglycerides and HDL are more important than LDL. As a matter of fact, the way I spin it, and remember, I don't give medical advice, but I'm talking about for me, LDL means nothing to me. I
Mm.
am more concerned about this fasting insulin, my A1C. There's a whole thing, and we won't go into it on this show today, but there's a whole thing about how we even got to treating people with LDL, treating people for what we call bad cholesterol. It is not bad. It is actually good. Your brain needs it. It needs it bad. Okay. The
Yes.
thing I will say about LDL cholesterol is that if your doctor is speaking to you, and Tara, this is still answering your question, speaking to you about you having high cholesterol, and I don't have it on this document, ask your doctor for a CAC score, a coronary artery calcium score. That is a picture of the heart. And go figure, insurance doesn't pay for it in most cases. And what you can do is ask you do have to have a doctor's order for it. So have your doctor to order it for you. You may have to pay $50. It would be the best $50 you've spent because I have high LDL cholesterol. My LDL is high. However, my CAC is a 0, which means that it took a picture of my heart. LDL is a risk factor
Right.
that we use. It's a risk factor. But the picture of my heart said to them, like, ain't nothing wrong with her heart. Her heart is good. And it's kind of like getting a colonoscopy. You can come back in 10 years and we'll see you then, right?
Mm.
Because there's no indication that something, no calcium buildup in my heart. LDL, and I'm just repeating this, LDL is a risk factor. It is not indicative really of what's going on with your heart.
All right. Thank you so much for answering that question. We have two more questions in here. We're going to run out of time because we only have an hour. So I do want to take these two questions, but I want to ask you this question about beyond diet, right? So what are the other factors that we need to concern ourselves with regarding our health and making sure that we are living at our optimal selves?
Absolutely. If you will pull those questions up, I have something that I can share.
Okay.
We'll come right back to that.
All right, hold on one second. Here's this one. So the first one is, should I eat added fats to my food, even if I'm also trying to lose weight and reverse insulin? I'm assuming insulin resistance. This is Country Girl again.
So, Country Girl, again, everything is going to be driven by your goals. Whatever your goals are, that's how you're going to make your determinations. Now, there is a group of people in this space that say eat all the fat you want.
I can't do it.
I was about to say I can't do it either. I mix it up. And there are also some assessments that you can take to get your own macronutrients based on the goals that you have. Again, if you can go to Maria Emmerich's webpage, she has a free macronutrient calculator that you can put in some markers that will give you and I can say this to you, well, she doesn't care anyway, because she is free to anybody, but I'm also her keto and carnivore coach. But you can go there and she can do that for you. You can have a macronutrient, and then you'll know what your macros are, how much protein you should be getting a day, how much fat you should be getting a day, how many carbs you should be getting a day. That formula exists. However, for me, I've not followed a macronutrient closely because I'm carnivore now, and I primarily only eat meat. I spend time fasting, and I try my best to only eat when I'm hungry. One of the things is not eating enough sometimes, like not getting enough. And so you have to figure out what your satiety points are so that you are not overeating and over consuming fat. So no, I don't think that fat is like free-nilly, right? And there are some people, you'll see them on videos, and this is why I say there's no one size fit all. Everyone must find their own formula. But the key is what you see some other people do, you may not be able to do it. The example for me is I work with different clients who know each other, and they will say to me, well, Miss ABC says she still eat her oatmeal every day. Okay, did Miss ABC tell you that she have the same diagnosis as you? Like, well, no. So you have to get intimate with your own body so that you will know what's going to impact you.
Yes.
And so that would be the answer to that one, Country Girl, is this is where you go deep with yourself, eliminate it. And then when you are ready to start putting some things back, I would say if you are trying to release weight, I would say, yes, have fat. You need fat. Your body craves it. It is essential to you. I would say not to go overboard. Like, it's not necessary to do, MCT oil, eat a stick of butter every day, get the extra ribeye fat from another ribeye and eat that as well. Those things are not necessary. You can find a balance and being able to make sure you meet the one macronutrient you want to make sure you meet is your protein. And you can balance that by saying, okay, when I tell people that I don't eat side dishes or my side dishes look different, so I'm going to have a steak and probably shrimp or steak and scallops. So those things become my side items versus I need to have, broccoli or cabbage. And I have been known to go to places. If I know you sell a chef salad and you got some boiled eggs, just bring me the boiled eggs. Just bring me the bacon. And I eat that with my steak. But that gives you a balance where everything on that is not fat.
Awesome. Thank you so much. The second question is Sharon is saying, my doctor won't take a fasting insulin or fasting glucose test, just the A1C, which is 4.8. I know I have inflammation because I have rheumatoid arthritis and a large waist.
Let's say this together in unison, Robyn. You need to find
A
a
new,
new doctor.
yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking is your doctor works for you. And so if your doctor does not work for you, you don't work for your doctor, then you should find a new doctor.
And
That's
so the thing, Sharon, is this is your body. And I don't know if you were here at the beginning. We talk about self-advocate, self-identify, and building a community. So now you're finding your way to a community, and the community is saying to you, if they won't do the tests, the exams, the labs you need so that you are well informed, because I believe that well informed women win.
yeah.
If you are not informed, then how will you manage your rheumatoid arthritis? And I would say that you're probably right that those itises, that large waist, are all indicative of insulin resistance. And I would say if he won't do it, then find a doctor that will.
Yes. That's right. Thank you so much. All right. So let's go back to the question. And
Sure,
we're gonna be wrapping up soon.
absolutely.
I don't want to like wear on my welcome over here. So what else? What else is there that we need to be considering or thinking about when we're in terms of our optimal health?
So I use with my client, y'all getting all my goods here, right? I share with the folks that I work with this little simple and I have to figure out how to make it share big, make it big, make it big. That didn't do it. X that out. Okay. I share this simple document that says finding your formula. So you all have heard us talk a lot about the impact of food, and it is a major one. Identifying what your source of fuel is hugely important. Again, we're thinking about self-identify. The other one is fitness, the source of your movement. Insulin resistance has a lot to do with being sedentary. It means that you're consuming things that you're not using. So again, remember, I'm a teacher, so I'm going to give you an analogy. It's like your car. If you go to the gas station tonight and you fill up your gas tank and it's on full, you bring it home and you park it. You're not going to leave in the morning and go and fill up your gas tank again. You're just not going to do that because it's already full. And so ideally, what you want to consider is, am I moving this off of my body? Am I moving around? Because remember, this fuel is energy for the body so that you can do the things that you need to do. So you want to figure out what your fitness is. Now, Robyn and I are sharing a walking challenge right now. That's our fitness. We're trying to incorporate 14,400 steps a day. So soon we're gonna have to get out of here because we still got steps to go. But essentially, you want to figure out your movement. Here's what I will say: you don't want to do over exercising. Cardio is fine, but cardio can also send you into a fight or flight kind of mode, right? Where your body is not regularly a runner. And so it's trying to figure out what it's running from. When you're on the treadmill, just going hard at it, your body is trying to figure out, what am I running from? And so you send it into flight mode, which can also cause you not to be able to release weight. Strength training, on the other hand, is a normal practice, right? You're lifting heavy things. Today I was lifting boxes. You should be able to do some of those things. So strength training. Then fasting. Fasting is key for me. This is a Woman of Wisdom show. We're all about the word. So the Bible says, not if you fast, but when you fast. And how many of us know that God is not going to have one thing be true He's going to always do exceedingly abundantly above. So fasting is for physical and spiritual. It works together. So the whole concept around not eating when you're not full, when you're not hungry, you must teach yourself to only eat when you're hungry, when you need fuel in your body. And if you've already eaten and you know you haven't used that energy, then back up. And if you like me and you still got inflammation to lose, I'll tease myself and say, I already pre-ate for that. I'm not
Right.
going to starve to death. I'm not going to starve to death. And then the other one is faith, figuring out what your source of strength is. For me, I've been unable to do this without my strength. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Like I'm like my prayer over my meals have changed. I used to pray, bless this food and make it nourishment for my body. And God, like, honey, that cheeseburger with that macaroni cheese is not gonna be nourishment for your body. I don't care how much you pray over it, right?
Right.
So now, before my food even comes, I'm asking God to help me make better choices so that the food that I take in will be nourishment for my body. And then there's family and friends, right? You want to make sure that you are building a community. Coming here with Carnivorous Grandma is a good place to be. We have other communities if you're interested, but getting connected with like-minded people. When I go out, when Robyn and G and I go out and we're eating, no one is surprised that there's not a baked potato at the table. That the rolls and the wait the servers are like, hey, you sure you don't want the bread? This just came out the oven. You can bring me the butter that you was gonna put on that I could
Right.
put on the bread.
As
Right.
long as
So
it's
this
real
is
butter.
kind of a simple formula. I ask my people, like, put this on your refrigerator. Remind yourself, like, do this work for yourself. What is your food source? How are you going to eat? What is your fitness? How do you fast? I close my window at 6 o'clock. It's almost 6 o'clock where I am. I won't be able to eat tonight. I'm done, right? It's over for me. I've consumed what I need to consume. It's dark outside and I'm through. I'll go tomorrow and eat again if I'm hungry. And then faith and then your community. So when you ask me about the other things, those are the other things that are going to help you along this journey.
That is awesome. Well, Denitra, I appreciate you coming on the show very much. I do want to share a couple of things before I let you go. And so I'm going to say that Denitra has a new YouTube channel. I'm going to share it real quick. Here's her channel, you guys. It's brand new, brand spanking new. So go over here and join. I mean, not join, but like subscribe to Denitra's new YouTube channel. You can see that she is one of our Hey Sister Girl panel members. And so we're going to be encouraging Denitra to get some more content out here. She's amazing at educating. And so that's one thing. And then I do want to show you also her website. So let me bring that up. And I know that you said that you have a little can you tell us a little bit about your website and what can we find here?
Absolutely. So I'm working at it a little bit more, but it is simply our home. The services that I offer are growing. I am working with someone now to get those fully identified. But just a little bit about us. There's information there about me, my husband as well. We are in this business together. He's done phenomenal. Y'all know how men do much better than us. And so he brings people to this space for us as well because he's had great success with it. And he often says about women that we are the nutrition managers.
Yes.
We monitor that. Just information about my affiliates, my credentials. I shared those earlier. And so I am working through trying to get it more established. I need to get some offerings out there so that I can meet with people because I do take clients. I've been working mostly local. I have a couple of clients that are not in town, but I'm happy to connect with anyone. My emails are all around. My phone number is available. And
And
so,
Denitra's links will be in the description box. They're already there, I do believe, in the description
mhm,
box. You mentioned a couple things about like Maria Emmerich. I'll make sure that her link is in there. And then also the infographic that you want to share. So we'll make sure that that gets shared out as well.
absolutely.
All right. So we are going to wrap it up. I would love to give you the final word. So my question for you is, what question didn't I ask that you wish I had?
um, I just, it's really not necessarily a question, but really being sisters among each other, that we call out things. I said earlier about if you see something, say something. Like, let's be the sisters that don't mind stepping on each other's toes, walking on each other's heels, because what that does is that keeps our sisters here longer. And
Yes.
so I've lost friends as a result of what I know now. I did not know then that are a result of insulin resistance, and I miss them dearly. But we loved on each other. I was as heavy as I could be. They were as heavy as they could be, and we loved each other. But I want us to love each other in another way where we can walk this thing together. We can say, hey, I don't do meet and eats. We don't always have to meet around food. Can we do a walk and talk? Can we do a sit and chat? Let's go to a museum. So those are the questions that we could have also, mentioned. But I mean, you asked great questions. We covered a lot of ground. I appreciate the opportunity to be here to share. Look forward to our next Hey Sister Girl.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much, Denitra. We have just loved having you here. I want to let you guys know that I will be back with a bonus episode of Women of Wisdom Speaks with Maria Emmerich next Monday. It's at 8 o'clock Hawaii time, which I think is 1 o'clock Eastern. So I'm looking forward to having an opportunity to meet and chat with her. And we'll be back next Saturday evening with Leah Janae on another episode of Carnivorous Grandma Speaks. Have a good night, everybody. Bye
Good
bye.
night.